Hello and welcome back to Vietnam Talk. So, are you new on this one? I come from another planet. You don't know who I am? Well, my name is Brian Yort. I'm the director and founder of Father Founded. And actually, it's my third interview this year, 2024, and I'm getting kind of exciting doing what I'm doing right now. I had two previous interviews with two Vietnam veterans, and I really enjoyed their stories, and they're amazing people. And on this third interview, we're going another direction because, I'm dealing mostly with Vietnam veterans, journalists, and people related in that matter. But I actually never have been dealing with any relative of a Vietnam veteran. So on this Vietnam talk, we will hear the story from Melissa Armstrong. And Melissa Armstrong, she had a very special and unique and a part of that story. Her father served in Vietnam from 1970 to 71 in Bien Hoa Air Base. And if anybody don't know where Bien Hoa is the same place as Long Binh, out north of Saigon. How do I know? Well, I've been there a lot of times doing many cases. It's one of my favorite spots. It has so much history. There used to be a used American military base there and an air base, and even had the Saigon River that came up with all the boats. It had a lot of history. And in 1954, a lot of people from the north who were Catholic came down to the south, and they moved there and live around in this area. So you had different kind of religion and different accent, different food. It's a very special area. He had a lot of history and it's very interesting. And it's an area that give me some good memories. So went back to the story. Melissa contacted the Father Founded because she found out that her father, during this time, Vietnam had fathering a child with a local woman, and she trying to find out what happened to the child because the father don't say too much. So, long story short, I prefer that give Melissa the word and her story because this is a very special story, and I'm really pleased that she will take the time to tell her story, and I hope this video will be seen outside, not only by us, our people who know Father Founder, but also by the Vietnamese, American, Amerasians. Maybe somewhere Melissa can find her unknown siblings in Vietnam. So Melissa, bring it on. Where do you live, first of all?
I live in Oklahoma. I live just outside of Oklahoma City.
All right. And Melissa, what's the story about you? Why did you came to us?
When I want to say it was when I was in high school, I learned from my stepmother that my dad had a son who was born when he was on his short tour to Vietnam, around 70, 71. And dad was always very closed off about anything regarding Vietnam. And even though he and I are both military veterans, actually same branch of service, Air Force, he really was not very open about it. So we lost him in March of 2018 to Agent Orange related lymphoma.
Wow, I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. And sadly, we were estranged when he died, and it was really hard.
Wow.
So Christmas of 2020, my husband and my sons gave me Ancestry DNA because they knew that this was part of my family tree that I had a lot of questions about. So I did the DNA test. Results came back. I didn't hear anything back. And then, as you and I had discussed, I had to take my test again because when I was having a challenge with a woman taking stuff from my tree and she wasn't even related to me, I wound up deleting my Ancestry DNA account. So I guess it was the end of March is when I received my last set of results back. I still don't have any answers.
Wow.
My dad I wasn't even born yet when my half brother was born. My dad met my mom. It's funny how they met. So my dad's trainer when he was at Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio was my mom's brother-in-law who was
Oh,
married to her sister. And
wow.
then Dad had actually volunteered to go to Vietnam to get out of Del Rio. He
Oh,
hated it. So when he came back, he wound up going to Andrews and they sent him back to Del Rio. And then
oh,
that's when my uncle introduced my mom and dad. And
oh.
they met in October of 72 and they got married in December. And then I was born in 76 after he had already been out of the Air Force.
I just had this kind of a curious question because, I mean, the first time I really have an interview a relative or child of Vietnam veterans,
Mm.
and it seems like for many people, Vietnam is kind of a taboo. It's like a silent war. Nobody
Yeah.
asks and nobody tell. And if you tell something, it's only because the person's almost going to die or the person really, sorry to say, drunk,
Yeah.
some toxic or something, and something
Right.
the balloon is exploding and things coming out. And I mean, or you
Yeah.
find some old photos and you say, what is that? Who is this person? And what's the deal about it?
Yeah.
Is that true or?
Um, you know, what was interesting, so aside from being very interested in my family genealogy, I also scrapbook. So my dad shared pictures with me from when he was in Vietnam. And when my dad's youngest brother came to visit us in June of 18, we were going through all of Dad's photos. Dad had scanned them and given the copies to me. And I found a picture of a Vietnamese doctor with a baby,
Oh yeah,
which
that's our story. Yeah,
I think I sent that picture to you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah. I got it. Yeah.
I connected the dots and I asked my uncle, so, is this Dad's son? And he said,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Wow. But how do you feel about it? I mean, your dad had kept a secret for all those years. I mean, it's not like he did some crime or anything. He just didn't
No,
open his mouth.
no, it's just sad. I mean, he never really dealt with his trauma from being overseas. I mean, I have PTSD from my military service,
Yeah.
and I've been fortunate to be able to get the help that I needed, but Dad was just so closed off. He he just didn't want to do it. So
Wow.
it's I'm not really angry. I'm just sad.
That's true. I mean, you feel like you're wasting a lot of years, a lot of time, and you might have a half sibling and you had something in common, and that person might suffering the same as you. I mean,
Yeah,
he had no dad. You had a dad who is not really, I mean, he was kind of lost.
yeah, he was.
So how do you, I mean, I hear a lot of Vietnam veterans suffering from PTSD or the Vietnam syndrome. Did you
Yeah,
have, I mean, you didn't know your father before he came to Vietnam. You only knew him after Vietnam because, of course, you wasn't born it. But do you
right.
feel your father was different than anybody else?
Um,
Yeah.
you know, I had friends who were not, Air Force brats or military brats, and I saw a definite difference. Well, and actually, my best friend from high school, she was an Air Force brat, but her dad didn't go to Vietnam. So there was
Mm.
a distinct difference between her dad and my dad. Um, I mean, I could say that my best friend's dad was, he was shy, but he wasn't like
Mm.
closed off like my dad was.
But you know that I mean, everybody had different experience in doing the war. Somebody saw combat, and somebody
Yeah.
stayed in the air base or in the office during those months or years, and nothing really happened out besides the heat or different smells. And somebody saw that all their friends got killed or
Yeah.
hurt, and people had mental wounds or mental scars and physical wounds. And I mean, some people don't say anything. Some people hardly say, will never talk about it. Somebody died with it. And I don't know
Mhm.
how your father carried on.
Honestly, I don't know. It's probably just the grace of God that kept him going.
But your father never. I mean, your father did he have any siblings? Somebody who talked to old bodies from the war and.
Um, I have, well, of course, it's my youngest, well, his youngest brother, my Uncle Randy, and then his next youngest brother, who's actually older than my Uncle Randy, my Uncle
Mm,
George, then my Aunt Cindy, who I'm really close to. And I'm probably closest to Randy and Cindy. And we've talked, and Randy's talked more about it, but he's confirmed a lot of the things that I was told by my stepmother, and well, related to my brother. But one thing she did tell me that he only told her is that he was with his girlfriend while she was dying.
Wow. But I mean, it must be kind of wild that he kept his secret, but he only told few people about it. I mean,
Yeah.
did you think if he keep the secret in a way and not hurting your people, or just don't want to bother your people, or if he's ashamed about it, or he just was wounded inside? I mean, how is hard?
Knowing my dad, how as much as I did know him, I think there were two aspects to it: shame and probably guilt.
Mm. But he didn't hang out with other fellow Vietnam veterans from his
No,
time, or local associations.
no, he was very private,
Wow.
and he was the kind of man who would keep like only one or two really close friends.
Mm. Wow. But how do now you found out that you might have I think you have a sibling in Vietnam. How do you feel the difference? I mean, it come as a shock, but now you had then kind of realizes it's more than just a picture. It's something. It's real.
It's not really shocking because I'd heard of other, Vietnam vets having children when they were overseas. It just it makes me to want to find him more
Mm,
because I was pretty much raised as an only child.
mm,
My stepmother had a son who's
mm.
quite a bit younger than me, but we've never been really close.
Oh wow.
So,
Okay.
so essentially, I'm an only child.
All right. I can
Sense.
imagine. But how do you what kind of search you did before you been, besides the DNA test and contacting father found it, what kind of search have you been doing? What kind of effort?
Um, Honestly, that was just it.
It's difficult, isn't it?
It's really hard. And I think I had mentioned to you in some of the emails
Mm,
what was interesting. My mother, who's been in the States her entire life, I
mm.
discovered that her dad, I was always told growing up, my grandfather's Chinese. Well, granddad
Wow.
wound up being part Chinese and Vietnamese.
Wow. I mean, if you're all related somewhere, that's amazing.
Maybe that would be funny in
That
a,
would be kind of
in a
a
neat way.
back to Adam and Eva. Wow. But I had this idea, this feeling is that people like you who had a sibling in Vietnam, it's hard to imagine what kind of life they're going through and where they're born and where your father met this woman. Because for me, it's like you say, stay in Bien Hoa Air Base. I went to Bien Hoa Air Base. I went there with my co-partner, friend Hong. Bien
Yeah.
Hoa is a big area. I mean, it's just not Long Bin. It's a big military base. You had Bien Hoa up in one side, and then another side you had military bases, and you had all the road come from Saigon up to Bien Hoa. Another side, a Catholic village, all Catholic from the North Vietnam came then 54
Okay.
after divisions. Another side there was a Long Bin air base, and then you had the Long Bin military base. Sorry, another side you had the Bien Hoa air base. So you had to flew in there, and I've been outside the air base, and I met this old mama san, and she remembered the American. Mama san was a woman who worked in a, sorry to say, a bar, a restaurant, or
Well,
post
yeah.
bar for all the women. She remembered all America, not by the name, but by the story about the woman drinking Saigon tea. I mean, I couldn't say, hey, damn, I wish I had a photo of your father bringing there. Maybe she remember him. You don't know.
Yeah.
The world is small. It happened before. We found people in that way because the old woman had kept photos or the memory that lived there since the war.
Hmm.
And that's we had cases up there when we help one American guy to locate his Amerasian daughter, and we find the family. There were only two Amerasian born in that area, and
Oh
there was
wow.
another side. And one of the women she was born, that was his daughter. She lived in the U.S. after the war. She moved to the U.S. on the Amerasian program. There was
Oh
one
wow.
one black guy, one white woman, and he was white, so that was his daughter. But that's kind of a coincidence, amazing story anyway. You know.
Some of the things that I've been told because when dad had gone to be with his girlfriend,
Mm.
his son was not there in the hut So
Mm.
it's to be assumed that the Viet Cong took off with my brother.
But you don't know, because a lot of time people couldn't be
I don't
adopted away, because like we had cases where birth mother come up and say, I had two Amerasian kids and they were taken away. Sometimes they went take to the orphanage and given away. It's happened a lot. And then they end up got nowhere. In England, could be Denmark, could be US, different names. And they only pop up when they had a DNA test and many years after, and it doesn't mean that they get killed all the time. A lot of times they still got adopted away, from other
Yeah.
family members because it was too dangerous, to have a child there. And especially when a war ends, a lot of women before that were taken out with the Operation Baby Lift. They went to the US, Australia, Norway, place more friendly to those kids. So, had you ever wondering what kind of place your father served in? Vietnam for many Americans was more like a Rambo movie or
Yeah.
exotic food or
watching Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah, other Hollywood style movie, yeah. But
I have been curious. One thing me personally, I could have gone to Korea for my first duty assignment, and I was dumb and swapped with one of my classmates who wound up going to California.
oh, come on, we all dumb somewhere.
But yeah, I have been curious about what it was like over there. I mean, and like I said, I've got some of the pictures, but I don't think they really do it justice.
No. But how do you feel? How do you feel about Vietnam today? I mean, you only associate Vietnam with your daddy and with your sibling.
It's still sad. I mean, I know that if my brother's deceased and if he died as a baby, I know he's in a better place, but
Sure.
I can't imagine to think what he had gone through being over there.
That's true. So how do you feel about Vietnamese today, Vietnam in general? I mean, it's not only associated with your brother, right?
Because it's also part of my heritage too, from my mom's side. I have a tendency to embrace it now.
Sure.
It was funny when I was deployed to Saudi. I had gone to the jewelry store, and there were some Filipinos in there. They asked me if I was a Filipina. And I'm like,
oh my God!
No.
I can imagine that would be horrifying. You can't respond.
I wasn't really horrified. I just thought it was funny because I'm like, no. I said,
Sorry.
my mother, my dad's mostly English. My mother's Mexican and Chinese. So no,
Wow.
but I understand why you're asking.
Oh, sorry about that. But back to the story. Had you ever talked to any other Vietnam veterans besides your daddy? I mean, if your daddy didn't tell you about Vietnam, who told you about the time in Vietnam? How can you judge about the time? And
we've had some friends. My husband and I have had some friends who are Vietnam vets, and I've had some of the gentlemen that Dad served with in the reserves that I've talked to a little bit, but I think it's just that generation. They're not very open.
No, I know. It takes time. It's very hard to have open people's heart, especially when they get older, and a lot of things like frozen in time. And I know. I mean, believe me, even for me, I mean, I know how to get along with people, but sometimes people want to talk. Sometimes people don't want to talk, and I mean, it's very difficult to get people to talk about the past. It's painful and it's embarrassment, and what can you say? I like I say, we're all coming to the end of that time because people are getting older and older, and people have lost the memories, senile dementia, and they don't know what they can't remember anything. And their generation of my parents too. When they're gone, it's only you and me, our generation, and we have to carrying on with photos and what you're doing now, the video conversation, we store every information and the photos and name. I mean, you have no name of your brother. You have probably no name of the mother of your sibling because it's only hearsay.
Yeah. Well, I actually do have his name. His name's John.
Johnny.
But that's very common.
It is indeed, because John in the US could be Wayne, fun or something like that, home in Vietnam or something else in Denmark, and every
Yeah.
different name, I mean different, and it's just standard name. I mean, a lot of Vietnamese women, they call the American boyfriend John, Joe, James.
Oh goodness.
Another one called them Nancy or Kim, or I mean, because nobody really knows each other's language, just had
Yeah,
nicknames and foolish name, and we had a lot
right.
of time we locate the Vietnam veteran for a woman. She only have a nickname, and oh,
Mm.
maybe she looked like this, he looked like that, and oh, he was tall man, white or black. Come on, all Americans are tall, black and white,
Right.
just like all Asian are yellow, blah blah blah. It's stupid, but it's how it is,
No.
No, it's all standard answers and standard questions, and it doesn't really get you along with that one, you
Mhm.
know. If okay, imagine this: if you ever could travel in your mind to Vietnam,
Mhm.
where would you travel to if you want to look for your sibling? How would you
I would
feel
probably
like?
go to Bien Hoa to go look.
Yeah,
And because even the picture of the doctor, I don't even know the doctor's name.
nay, it could be somebody,
Yeah.
nobody.
I mean, I could take pictures of dad from back then and say,
Hmm.
Did you know this man?"
Hmm. That's true, but it's like this. If you have a dream and you meet your brother and this dream comes true and you meet your brother, what will you do? Or what will you say? How would you feel? I mean, what will be your message to him after all those years? I mean, you had the common same daddy, but besides that, you're very different.
Just let him know, even though dad didn't reach out, that he had a sister who wanted to know him and that loves him.
That's a good message. That's everybody need to hear. And I had a finally question I had to you. You
Sorry.
went to I know you went to the military,
I did.
right? Is that because of your daddy?
Partly, yeah.
Wow. So he came from one generation to another.
Hmm.
That's amazing. Do you have any kids by yourself?
Yes, I have a daughter who is 26. I have
All right.
a son who's 17, who's going to be 18 in a few months.
Wow.
And my
Congratulations.
youngest, my youngest is 15 and a half.
So anybody going to the military?
Unfortunately, not. Uh, and it's,
Beautiful.
I think my youngest would if he could, but, and same with my eldest, just they've got some medical issues that
I
they
can
can't.
imagine that. All right. All right.
Uh, well, mostly just as you've probably heard, a lot of the kids from Vietnam vets and the grandkids too wind up with ADHD and autism,
Oh
and we
yeah,
were
yeah,
all
because of the Agent Orange and stuff like that, went down
yeah,
from generation on the DNA, can all the way
yeah,
down. Yeah, I know. It's they say that's what they say. The war is never over. It just passed from generation to generation.
yeah. Were you ever involved with Children of Vietnam Veterans Health Alliance before it closed?
No, no, no. I want to hear about it. I just hear that they're doing a lot of things with the Agent Orange and dioxin
They
and
were,
all this. That I think they put them. I think they put some of the big companies in the court because they get some of the money from compensation because even they
yeah.
sprayed the enemy, they can get all the stuff inside themselves. And
Mm.
when they have kids, it passed to the kids and the grandkids, and it's like they never really leave the bodies.
No, it doesn't. And we've been fortunate that our family we've found civilian physicians who will listen to us. Hey, this is we've got this in our family. We're thinking
Mm.
this might be a result of my dad's exposure. In fact,
Yeah.
our orthodontist that we use for the kids and for me, he agrees.
Wow.
And ironically enough, his sister was my dad's oncologist.
Wow. But when I went to Saigon, they had some places like hospital when they keep all those, I would say, orphans or living person people who had Agent Orange. Or oh my God, I just saw photos about it. It's like I wouldn't
Yeah,
say like a freak show, but it's like a horror. People with big heads and free arms, and
it's
I mean,
heartbreaking.
It is indeed, because they have nothing to do with anything, with the war or anything, just like innocent victims of all the sides, Vietnamese, Americans, the GIs, you, your kids, maybe your grandkids, and they say, how can you have kids? Nobody can know it. I mean, it comes maybe 40 years after.
And honestly, they need to do more testing. It irritates me, even when I was being seen at the VA and I mentioned, hey, my dad served, and it's like one of those deals where you don't know, and because since I served, I don't know what part of this is from my exposure to AO through my dad's genetics, or what's related to me from my own military service.
That's true. But when your daddy served in Bien Hoa, they spray all the area around Bien Hoa to keep
Yeah,
it, keep all the foils and all the grass down, because they could better see the enemy, or the Viet
yeah,
Cong or whoever. So of course, when you spray something coming in your face, I mean, they didn't carrying all the suits and all the masks. It just opened the airplanes and just had a big spray everything, and they
yeah,
get everything in the face. Of course, I mean, you get what you give. It's sad to say.
yeah.
So,
And dad worked on airplanes too, so
oh yeah, oh yeah. So, do you have any kind of final message to people who see our interview? Could be Vietnamese, could be Americans, Amerasians. Anything to say about the issue, about us, about you, about the search?
don't lose hope. Um,
Yeah,
you know, we're just people,
that's true.
and there's no reason for prejudice against anybody.
Nee,
You
that's
know,
true.
just embrace if you find your loved one who's Amerasian, love them,
Mm,
meet
true.
them where they're at.
Exactly. Melissa, it just make my Friday night much better. It was really a pleasure talking to you, and to everybody who see this and see Melissa, hear her message, and you can read more under this program, under the YouTube here, about her search and more information, and spread the words, comment, don't be afraid, help her. And Melissa, you are on the DNA ancestry, right?
Yes,
And do you upload your test to MyHeritage too?
I have. Yes.
Good. So you know where to find Melissa. She's not unknown. And if you're Melissa's brother, she's looking for you. Melissa, thank you so much. And thank you for taking time with me.